Services modernizes software and application development to help accelerate innovation and digital transformation.
So you mean building new applications, UI, and mobile interfaces?
Well, you said you needed to innovate more quickly.
Oh, so he's a listener.
To do more at scale, trust CDW Amplified Development Services.
Supermarket sushi, really?
No. Wait, Troy, you work here?
I'm never not working. Like Head & Shoulders Scalp Shield technology, up to 100% dandruff protection, even between washes.
Never not working, huh?
Oh, Troy, you're such a good teacher.
Yeah, I know. Never not working. Never not working. Never ever not working.
Are you serious?
Never not working. Dandruff protection that's never not working. Head & Shoulders Scalp Shield technology.
Time to call a credit repair company to fix my credit. Hold the phone, man. You can do it yourself with Credit Versio. That's way too hard. Call the credit repair company. Most credit repair companies only work on 1 or 2 accounts at a time, making it slow and expensive. You won't figure that out for months. Ignore him. Credit Versio's brilliant software scans all 3 credit bureaus, finds the accounts that are hurting your score, and guides you through the entire process. Anyone can do it. Let's fast forward and see the results. Wow, I fixed my own credit and saved hundreds. You can do this. Visit creditversio.com.
A pleasant good morning to everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Carlos Brown Show right here on the Black College Sports Network. Yours truly, Carlos Brown. The other gentleman is Charles Edmond of the Alcorn State Radio Network. It is game day, week 1. We'll talk about all the big games in the Southwestern Athletic Conference. We'll recap last Saturday's games. We'll have what's trending, news and notes. I selected a few that I thought was of the most importance. Guest menu for today, Charles Edmond and Brandon B.J. Jones of HBCU football, or Inside HBCU football. Charles, good morning to you, sir. It's game week for you. I know you're excited like many of the fans of the Southwestern Athletic Conference and HBCU sports and HBCU football.
I am. I'm ready. I mean, it just seems like SWAC Football Media Day was just yesterday. That was 6 weeks ago, and here we are. Fast forward 6 weeks later, here we are, ready to kick it off. Full slate of games, and we don't play until later. But just getting ready to rock and roll. It's been a busy week, and let's play some football. Let's get it kicked off.
We're both in our attire. You in the purple and gold, Alcorn State. I'm in the Southern University T-shirt. Although I will admit, Alcorn State has the tougher opponent. But hey, Southern University playing Florida Memorial. Charles, they're 1-0 on the season. I look at them as championship material. That's the way you have to look at it. And my philosophy is simply this: you kill a gnat, which is very small, with a maul hammer. So that's the way I look at it for Southern University. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about Alcorn State, Stephen F. Austin. We'll recap games from last Saturday in the conference. Also Thursday night, there was 2 big ball games involving teams in the conference. But for right now, I'm going to go to what's trending here on the Carlos Brown Show. FAMU, and there's been a lot of conversation about FAMU the last week. They received some good news. Players ruled eligible and will play in the Orange Blossom Classic. I wonder if that will change some of the picks, Charles, for the fans who follow the Southwestern Athletic Conference. But linebacker, Isaiah Land, defensive back, B.J. Bowler, right tackle, Cam Coven, and wide receiver, Nick Dixon. And boy, what a week for FAMU athletics. The president, President Robinson, on the hot seat. Fans, alums are just livid. They want change. They want to see action. Now down to what, about 8 players now for FAMU that are still ineligible, but a big drop from last week, 26. And I'll go back to last week. I had the guest, Charles, you were not on. You were vacationing last week, and I heard it was an absolute great time. But Dr. Cavill came on and talked about not only about issues in the compliance office, but he called it the triangle. Registrar, compliance office had to work together, financial aid, of course, with the back of the campus. But for FAMU, a bit of good news, Charles.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this time last week they were being knocked in the head, and here they are. And it just goes to show you that when you pull your resources together, however way they may come, whether it's from the SWAC office assisting and sending people down to Tallahassee to help, or whatever means, as someone on the inside looking in, someone that works for a university in this conference, that works with athletics on a daily basis, that's worked with compliance people here and there, I understand how this could get to where it got to for Florida A&M. And I'm not in the business of criticizing administrations. I would not do that. I haven't done that, and I won't do that, because I have an idea of how these things work, whether it's at Southern, whether it's at Alcorn, Jackson State, it doesn't matter. The challenges are there throughout the entire HBCU landscape. And there was a report that came out in terms of how many people are in compliance from throughout the HBCU landscape, from as many as 4 to as little as 1. And so why that's the case, we don't know. Presidents and ADs can talk about it if they choose, but that's just the landscape that you're dealing with. Money, resources, finances, lack of help, quality, quantity. There's so much to unpack there. You just don't have enough time to get into it. Will there be a big time explanation? Probably not. Probably not. So you have to take it at face value. Bottom line is, it was disappointing that they had those players ruled ineligible, but here a week later, I'm glad you got some players back. You got your best defensive player back. They only had 8 offensive linemen available for the game against North Carolina last week. They got 1 available. So we'll see how that rounds out here with their game tomorrow with Jackson State. So I'm glad there's some good news there for Florida A&M. And some of it's personal for me, Carlos, because I Willie Simmons well. His face, he had to do represent, and his team played their hearts out last week against North Carolina despite being shorthanded. And I think it'll be a good football game on Sunday. Don't sleep on FAMU now. That quarterback that they had played well against North Carolina. Careless turnover late in the first half kind of stemmed the momentum a little bit. But if they can put up points against Jack did against North Carolina and make Shedeur Sanders and that offense score some points, I don't think it'll be a 7-6 game like it was last year. I think it'll be more high scoring. So we'll see how that goes. But I'm glad to see FAMU get some players back. I'm glad to see some sense of normalcy there. Hopefully it'll get better as time rolls along. This conversation can go in a whole nother direction at another time. But, as a SWAC supporter, as someone that supports Willie Simmons, I'm glad things are getting a little bit better, trending in the right direction.
Couple of things, most important, we talked about it last week. Investment in compliance. Make sure you're on the same page as financial aid. I refer to the administrative side as well. And that will go a good ways in helping out. But being with Southern University and seeing the issues that they went through, they had to make a commitment, that's the other word, and investment into those areas to make sure that you're all on the same page, because that's not a great feeling. But for FAMU to get some of the players back, a very intriguing ball game. tomorrow. We'll get a little bit more into that. The Coach Dooley era begins at Southern University, and you're just talking about excitement, and Coach Dooley has come full circle, cut his teeth coaching under the legendary Coach Pete Richardson, who will be the color analyst, I'm assuming, again, for the Jaguar Radio Network. But a lot of emotions in the article today. He talked about, not thinking he would ever get to this point where he's going to be at. And, of course, Coach Dooley leads the football team on the field. So although it is now where I'm at in the city of Baton Rouge, stopped raining finally. But when I tell you maybe a 45 minutes of a heavy rain, and my reports from campus was at the time, not a drop of rain. I'm sure someone will let us know right now if it's raining there. But 80% chance of rain today for Southern University in the season opener. But according to reports, most of the rain will be between 3 and 4. But only the creator knows, Charles, a lot of times. Meteorologists, they are predicting, they go with the signs, but I'm glad Southern and all the other teams, including Alcorn, had a chance to practice in the elements that they were going to possibly see in game one. And I think both teams will deal with the elements one way or the other. But the Coach Dooley era begins tonight at 6 p.m. against Florida Memorial University. Also of note, HBCU players that made NFL rosters. Hooray. Brian Cook. Now, ended at Cincinnati, but played at Howard. He made it with the Kansas City Chiefs. Joshua Williams, defensive back at Kansas City from Fayetteville State, a DB. Jacoby Durant, Los Angeles Rams, DB, South Carolina State. Congratulations. Jatiri Carter, offensive lineman, Southern University, Chicago Bears, and Deshaun Dixon, the defensive end from Norfolk State, makes it with the Jacksonville Jaguars, their roster. And then finally, Marquise Bell, defensive back, FAMU, made it with the Dallas Cowboys. So that is a tremendous situation, Charles, that these guys were able to make it. I couldn't be happier for them representing HBCU football. And then last but not least, I don't know how many people noticed it, but Dr. Charles McClellan gets awarded a 3-year contract extension. And just quite honestly, he deserved it. He's led this conference into a bright time, a bright future, Charles. When he took over, there was some question marks. There was quite simply this conference was at a standstill. But under his leadership and the staff, they've moved this conference forward, and the future looks bright. And some of the biggest things that have, on social media, one of the things, not the only one, talking about a TV contract with ESPN. And I think they got a year or two left on that contract. But if I know Dr. McClellan, he is going to put the conference in the best situation when it's time to renew that contract, if that's going to be the case, or if they decide to look elsewhere. But competition now, you've got a lot of media groups wanting a piece of that pie. Maybe not as the primary rights, but secondary, et cetera, et cetera. So congratulations, Dr. McClellan. You deserve it. Then also, Charles, William and Mary. Now, you might say, what are we bringing that up for? Well, I follow them. They defeated Charlotte. And from a personal standpoint, early commitment for Southern University, Tyler Hughes, ended up going to William and Mary. But guess what? Looking at it, they were able to defeat Charlotte. So that was the first FCS to defeat an FBS opponent. I bring that up because one of the questions I want to put out to the audience today, a lot of discussion this past week, especially after Thursday. Alabama, Birmingham just laid an old-fashioned woodshed whipping on Alabama and them. And not that I had Alabama and them favored, but Charles, that was a just total whipping. And then once again, the discussion, which I've talked about for about 15 years, playing up money games. Who, what, where, how, and why. You could fill in. I filled in those kind of questions of the money games. Charles, if it was up to me, one every 4 or 5 years. I said 4 before, now I moved it up to 5. And looking at the next couple of weeks, I might say one every 10 years. But we know why it's done. We know why it's done. It's money. So who benefits, Charles? The athletic department, specifically the football programs. Will you be able to get with that money, new helmets, new equipment, or does it go into the general fund? I know, Charles, you're getting all choked up. I'm getting emotional.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
who, what, where, and how?
Based on what I know, what little I know about how these things go, that money, that guarantee has already been factored into their budget. In other words, whatever the guarantee is, if they got $400,000 to play UAB, the contract was signed a while ago. That $400,000 was already in the football program's budget already. And that $400,000 guarantee goes back into whether it's athletics or my guess is the general fund, in which athletics gets a piece of that general fund. So based on what I know about how these things work, your budget is already set based on those guarantee games already in there. So once the game is played, it goes back into that same pot. So Alabama, as far as I'm concerned, Alabama A&M, that for whatever they got for it, it was already there before they played the game. Now, once they get the check and cash it and put it back in, it goes back into that same pot. So that's kind of how I read those situations. That's why there's so much there needs to be discussed about this whole thing, as well as other stuff, because that's kind of how it works in a lot of our schools. Their budget is based on projected revenue. And so that guarantee game was projected revenue. The contract was signed well before the game was played. So you've already got that up front. It's forward funded. And then as the game is played, that money goes back. But, to the discussion, I thought it was a good matchup, to be honest with you. Two schools 90 miles apart. UAB is not exactly, Alabama. We do know Alabama A&M is rebuilding, no Glass. Now, if they last year, you feel pretty good about, maybe Alabama A&M hanging. But clearly, as Jamie Walker talked about weeks ago, continuity. Clearly, the continuity is not there right now in Alabama A&M with all the transfers. The pieces aren't there, not yet anyway. And it was kind of disappointing to see that score and the way it turned out. It wasn't good at all. And, Coach Maynard's got a lot of work to do in all phases. But if there's a game that's going to expose those things, let it be week 1. Let it be a non-conference game where you get exposed big time and you get a chance to make your corrections and adjustments. Because if A&M is competitive in the East, nobody's going to be talking about UAB. Right now, that's just the game that they just played that it was a shellacking and everybody's talking about. So I think Coach Maynard will figure it out somewhat, but there's a lot of work to do up there in Huntsville, and it was evident based on what we saw Thursday.
Money games. I said who benefits? Athletic department, football team. That's who should benefit. But, of course, I'm not a rookie at this. I know general fund is usually not a popular word with many. What are the advantages? Money, of course, just money. Where do you play these games? Since I don't like them, once every 5 years now, beginning or the end of the season? That is a question. I would think the beginning. Why play them? I think athletes want to kind of gauge themselves with their peers at the FCS level and above, the FBS level. But, Charles, I have to say this. Disappointing Alabama A&M. I did not think they would win the game, 1. But no points. Then defense. Coach Maynard brought in a plethora of players on the defensive side. And I understand continuity and chemistry. Maybe 4 weeks is not enough. That's usually the length of fall camp to get things done, but bitterly disappointing. And then one of the major things that came out of the game, of course, quarterback Casey struggled. Langford came in, did a better job. Is there a quarterback controversy? It seems like we're talking about that all the time. The backup quarterback is the most popular quarterback. I understand that. But the commentators talked about, and I think I actually missed it, but Coach Maynard says, in being sarcastic as he can often be, I'm not paid. And I thought about you, Charles. I'm paid to win SWAC games, not these type of games. Not a good statement. I'm Coach Brown. I'm coaching. I'm going to promise two things. We're going to show up, of course, and we're going to play hard. I'm not going to fall for that question. And sometimes how you answer it is very important. So bitterly disappointed in Alabama A&M. Once again, no, I didn't expect them to win, but I didn't expect them to get shut out. And UAB, now let's think about it, Charles. Last year they made it to a bowl game. So I think, and I was guilty of this as well, thinking that, remember they shut the program down, then they came back, but a pretty good team, and then they just physically, and here's just the thing, they physically whipped Alabama A&M at the line of scrimmage. And that happens a lot of times. The difference is in the interior line, offense and defensive line, and then, sometimes the speed, but Mississippi Valley State played much better against Tarleton State, 27-13. So, yeah, put me down. I am extremely disappointed in Alabama A&M.
Yeah, I mean, I'm disappointed too. I thought it would be a better effort. The comments that Coach Maynard said about the non-conference games, yeah, as a coach, you got to get your team ready and show up and play the best that you can play. I don't think he expected that to happen in front of his very eyes. He didn't expect that type of deal. I was expecting more from Quincy Casey. I was expecting that. When I found out he was on their roster, I'm like, okay, he's no Glass, but he's very manageable and serviceable to where you build your offense a little bit around him, but he clearly struggled. So Alabama A&M's got a lot of work to do. And I think that, for him and for us and for Bulldog fans, you can put that one in your rearview mirror. You can burn up the stat sheet. You can burn it up, and you got to start over and get ready, for your next game. Because that's just one of those things. It's a little bit different when you're playing UAB as compared to Valley playing Tarleton or Alcorn playing Stephen F. It's a little bit different because Tarleton's FCS, Stephen F, FCS a little bit better. 63 scholarships on sides. It's 85 to 63 in terms of scholarships. So I mean, we talk about that all the time. As you talked about, it makes a difference, especially up front. You get 22 more scholarships available, and you do get those upsets from time, but more than likely, no. I thought it was a matchup in terms of geographic. I thought it would be a good crowd because the two schools are 90 miles apart. And it was a SWAC fan and watching the game, truly disappointed as compared to proud SWAC fan when you MU and North Carolina. You were proud with how they were able to perform despite being short. So it was disappointing, but Coach Maynard's got a lot of work to do. And that SWAC championship he won in the spring a couple of years ago, that's kind of in the rearview mirror. And now the expectation is with all these transfers that you got to step it up, especially with the Magic City. That's a while ways away, but look at what your arch rival just did, Alabama State, beating Howard. I mean, that was very impressive considering your defensive coordinator started literally weeks ago. And yet you show up on national TV despite lightning delays and you get it done. So, you got to throw that in the bag too. If you want to be honest and talk about it, your number one rival won despite the fact they're playing, another HBCU opponent, but that's kind of the talk of what's going on there. So a lot of work to do though for Cornell Maynard. There's no question about it. And he's got to get it going.
Yeah, you kind of mentioned it. A MEAC SWAC Challenge that was played after the show last week. Of course, Alabama State over Howard 23 to 13. You know, Alabama State first career win for Coach Robinson and his staff. Kind of started off slow, but they were able to get it done. Mr. Davis, quarterback, in the second half performed much better. Now, he's not tall, but he's very gifted and athletic. But Alabama State at least gives the SWAC this year a chance to brag, because just a woeful record against the Mid-Eastern Athletic Conference, whether it's the MEAC SWAC Challenge or it's the Celebration Bowl. North Carolina, of course, a 32-point victory over FAMU, but you got to be proud. I sent Coach Simmons a text message. In spite of all the shenanigans and all of the things that they went through, it was a coming out party for Jeremy Musa. I thought he performed outstanding last Saturday, and boy, you're just proud. I Coach Simmons, I said, SWAC proud coming from a Southern Jaguar. That's how happy I was for the effort, and that's the thing. Remember, I said show up and then give a maximum effort, the best that you can put out there. And they did all of this with 26 players, some huge impact players for them. So hats off to FAMU. And now it makes it very interesting. We're going to have our predictions later on in the show. BJ Jones joins us. So Charles, get ready for your predictions. I'm kind of going back and forth with that one. I mean, Jackson State and FAMU, the Orange Blossom Classic. It should be a very, very good football game. I said Tarleton State over Valley State 27-13. Actually, with 29-13. But Mississippi Valley State defensively, a lot improved. Offensively, and I know they had the number one JUCO quarterback coming in, but Valley offensively kind of struggled at times, but the effort was there. 29-13, they lost to Tarleton State, so they go on the road. And back to Alabama A&M, it doesn't get any easier for them. Next week, they play up again against Troy State, and that's just going to be tough, Charles. So when we look at these money games, these guarantee games, and I'm looking at some of the comments in the chat room, Edmond basically said what you said. If you can you need to start getting your fans, no matter who you play, even in conference games, in the seat, butts in the seat, then you have to play less of those type of games. However, I will say this. It is so easy for directors of athletics to get these type of games. You guys have to convince me. I still think that ADs in this conference will try at every turn to get those type of games. And I don't want to be hypocritical, because next week Southern University is playing at Crosstown, LSU. That's no turnaround game. You're getting $700,000 guarantee. Then you're getting $50,000 to the Southern University Foundation. And then you're getting an allotment of tickets to sell, which from all accounts, Southern has sold out their allotment of tickets. So they're going to utilize that money. I've heard from a lot of people already. They just don't like those type of games. I've said I don't either. But guess what? I'm in a minority on that, maybe. But these games are going to continue to happen. They are, Charles. They're going to continue to happen. But if it was up to me, you're not going to play them every year. And Southern University has been guilty of playing. Well, I say guilty. They've played back-to-back games against FBS opponents. I just don't like it. But that's just me. Go ahead, Charles.
Well, let's just use the Southern LSU example. So you threw out the numbers, right? $700,000 guarantee.
I knew you were going to bring that.
Okay, we can use other examples, but I'm just saying that's on the high end as far as the guarantee. Like they didn't Southern get 6 or 7 when they played Georgia several years ago. But I'm just using that as an example.
About 700,000.
Right. So it's on the high end. Typically, our schools get anywhere from 3 to 500,000 for those games. It's not necessarily an LSU or high SEC, but let's just use that as an example. All right, so 700,000 plus ticket sales. So let's just use the 700,000. Do you think if Roman Banks was on your show right now and we asked him on a typical night at Mumford, when you look at sales versus expenses for your home game, would you clear $700,000? I'm just using Southern as an example because that's what we're talking about.
Yeah, Charles, no. Everybody knows that answer. No, they don't clear that on the average.
Okay.
Right.
Okay, so that's the reason why these games get played. And until it changes, and we may be unrealistic, I may be as well, but every AD pretty much has said until we can start filling up our stadiums, maybe not even filling up, but have better crowds to where you don't necessarily have to lean that way, it's going to continue. I interviewed our athletic director the other day. The show's out there on social media, and he talked about, why we increased our parking and all of that. There's conversation about that, obviously, but if we do better in terms of having better crowds at home for conference games, rival or not, I think the need for playing those type of games won't be as much. And I know that's a painful thing to accept, but that's just the reality of what, and every school in our conference is doing it, maybe with the exception of Jackson State. Now, Coach Sanders has already pushed back on some of that stuff, but when you're playing in a 60,000 seat stadium and you had 3 crowds of 50,000 last year, you can make that statement. And if they continue to win, they're going to have 2 or 3 games of 50,000 or more at home. Southern's might be a record crowd. That's $1 million payday. That's $1 million revenue generator, at least, maybe a little bit more than that. So until we can do that, not necessarily for the, consistently, but if we do it 2 or 3 times a year at home, then I think the need for those type of games is not as great. But until it happens, that's why it continues. I know we disagree with it. We can agree to disagree, but this is what ADs have told me for years. Nothing has changed on that end, so therefore nothing's going to change in terms of playing these type of guarantee games. We're playing Tulane next week. I don't know the payout for that, but again, if we have bigger crowds at home where we make that revenue in-house, you don't necessarily need to play a Tulane. You can play a Stephen F. You can play a Jacksonville State. You can play a Samford. But until that happens, this is what we're doing, and I don't think it's going to change anytime soon, just based on the ebbs and flows and trends of what happens in this league.
Well, no, I understand that, but I'm saying even when that happens, what you're talking about, because I've seen it years ago. I'm going back in history again. When I think you've heard of him, Coach Richardson. Every home game was packed. What was one of the reasons why? They were winning and winning championships. So that is a correlation between winning championships and drawing a bigger crowd, and then consistency. At one point, Southern, and I think Jackson State and Grambling has done it as well, didn't lose a conference game for 3 years. So you ride that wave. But I'm saying, even if this happens again, I think it's quick and easy for ADs to they'll still schedule those games. Maybe not as many, but they'll get one in. They'll get one in. And to your point about Jackson State, yeah, they're coming off a championship. They were able to draw great crowds. Why? Because they were winning. Now, albeit it wasn't a lot of blowout games, but a win is a win. So I'm saying, I understand your point. I really do. But I'm saying, in spite of, they still will schedule those games because it's easy to do and it's the biggest gate that they're going to get during the season. But I see a lot of people discussing this in the chat room. I, I'm kind of monitoring it. That's always a hot topic, Charles.
Yeah.
Money games. Jamar says he saw Southern Miss defeat Nebraska. They were playing up, but you know what? That's still FBS against FBS, albeit at one time Southern Miss was the Giant Killers, because they would win important games. But Charles, to your point, I agree with that part of it though. You need to start getting more of your fans to consistently get in the stadium. I
Yeah.
understand there's a lot of them outside tailgating, but you need to get you in. We really do.
Yeah. Well, and here's the other part. You mentioned Southern, you mentioned Jackson. We know about Alcorn and Grambling.
Mm-hmm.
That those four, you can pull up the attendance figures, and if you rate the conference teams in terms of the top four in attendance. And I'm not calling out any other school in this league, but there's only a handful of schools in this conference that really draw well at home. And let's just be honest about that. There's only a hand. Probably we got 12 teams, right? Probably a third, 4 to 5 of our schools really draw well at home. Only 4 or 5 really travel well. Let's put that out there. Not calling out the ones that don't, but that plays a factor in it as well. And so when you don't draw well at home, the need is even higher to play those type of money games. The ones that draw a little bit better at home maybe still have the need, but is not as desperate as some of the other teams. And when I say desperation, I do think it is kind of that. When you're averaging just a 2,500, 3,000, 4,000 at home, that's not a lot of revenue. That's not a lot of revenue. And so you got to do that to be able to make up for the other shortfalls. So what you're talking about, what I'm talking about, is only a handful of schools in this league that draw well. And I'm not calling out the ones that don't. I'm just looking at the ones that do, and they don't necessarily need to play as many, but there are quite a few schools that don't. And so the need will always be there until they improve their attendance at their stadiums. And so I think that's another thing to keep in mind. I kind of look at the whole picture. We know the Jaguar Nation travels well. We know the Braves fans travel well. We know Jacksonians travel well. And Grambling, for the most part, Bayou Classic being a case in point for me, and for the most part, I think Grambling fans travel well. But the others,
that's about it for Grambling. That's about it for Grambling. I take a little shot there, Grambling.
Yeah,
and then I'll tell you something. And then I'll tell you something else, Charles. Alcorn with that run they had, but Alcorn's a little different. Lorman, Mississippi, it's rural. So would I be safe to say, even when they had those strings of championships, I personally was there for 2 championship games. It was packed. But during the regular season, sometimes isn't it a stretch? I've heard you comment that sometimes you were a little disappointed that there wasn't a little bit more of a crowd there. But I have to realize that Lorman is, in a rural section. Jackson is a metropolitan area. Baton Rouge, 500,000 people. See where I'm going? Mm-hmm. Grambling State in a small area. So I guess you have to factor all that in as well. And by the way, Charles, our thoughts and prayers go out to the city of Jackson with the water crisis. It's shameful. In 2022, a city that's 82% African American have to go through that. And I don't want to go on a political rant, but I can think of Texas governor, Mississippi governor. I'll just shake my head to it. Just nuts. Just literally nuts. But anyway, go ahead, Charles.
Well, yeah, on that point, it didn't have to happen. I mean, that's, dealing with that, what Jackson's dealing with. My sister-in-law lives in Jackson, and a grocery store that I frequent, their manager gave donated 10 cases of water. and water's a premium in Jackson right now. They're limiting the amount of water you can buy in these grocery stores in Jackson, so people are going out of the city to get water where it's not, where they have more of a quantity. But I just think, when you look at attendance and you look at budgeting, and I see a comment, it's the athletic director's responsibility. I get that, but I think you have to also look at your fan behavior as well, in terms of what games do our fans typically frequent and participate. Social media, the chat rooms, HBCU sports, the blogs kind of dictate, how attendance goes, because those games that a lot of people comment on, you typically assume that there's going to be a pretty good crowd. The ones that, they're not going to partake in, you don't get a lot of chatter. You can kind of, just like right here today, we got Stephen F. Austin coming in, the number 10th ranked team in the FCS. I'm excited as heck to see a team like that come in here, because you don't get that very often. We played them in the 90s when they were one of the best teams in the FCS. They still are today, 30 years later. Tough loss against Jacksonville State. They were shut out in the second half, bunch of lightning delays. The game was eventually canceled in the fourth quarter, but they didn't look good at all in the second half. They were up 17-3 on Jacksonville State early, and that's something we're going to have to deal with, especially early on. But, let's be honest. When you're looking at these home games and getting these type of games, the attendance does drop off. And I think for several reasons, because it's not a rivalry, it's not a SWAC game, it's not an HBCU matchup, and there's just this perception that we're not going to beat these type of teams. I've heard this time and time again, Now, the games that we feel like we can win, the Louisiana colleges, we played them in the past. The Mississippi colleges, we played them in the past. You see Miles College, Florida Memorial. You got Florida Memorial today. A lot of folks feel like that should be a lopsided win for the Jaguars, so fans are excited down there, not only for Dooley in his first game, but look at who they're playing. They feel like Southern ought to win in a runaway. I feel that way too. So I think that's also a big factor. So SWAC fans are rivalry friendly. Rival games, they're going to come out, show up, and show out. But what about the non-rival games that are SWAC games? Are they going to show up and show out for those? The numbers tell you what that's about. Late in the season, Bayou Classic, Southern Jackson, Southern Alcorn Valley, those rival games, they'll be there. But what about those other games? And that helps factor in budgeting, attendance, finances, all of that, as well as those non-conference games. So there's a lot in the hopper there that we have to unpack to put it out there to understand and educate. And I think if we do that, and if people were honest about it, I think you'll see where the ebbs and flows go. Playing these big money games, I'm not a big fan of it, but on the inside looking in, when you talk to our ADs, and I've worked with a bunch of them, it's the same conversation. We got to do better at home. We have to have better attendance at home in order to not exactly look at playing these guarantee games. Until that happens, we're going to continue to do this. We're going to continue to do it. I don't necessarily like it, but it's just the brutal reality of business and athletics, because this is a business, whether we want to accept it or not. This is a business. Money's being spent. Scholarships are being doled out. It's being paid for. Money going in, money coming out. And so that's what I've been told. That's the way I kind of see it now. And until we get on the positive side, the $700,000 guarantee, Carlos, is going to continue.
Call me Doubting Thomas. You remember him in the biblical sense? All that sounds great, and I agree. I really do. But ADs, if they get a chance to still, let's say all that happens, what you're saying, they're packing the games home against conference opponents, and I still, when the opportunity arises, I'll leave it at that. They'll still make those deals. Let's make a deal. You remember that game show? Curtain 1, curtain 2, curtain 3. You get something at curtain 1, but then they entice you with, you can keep what you have, or you can try to get something better. Which curtain will you pick, 2 or 3? So yeah, I'm kind of taking a little jab, a little friendly jab at the directors of athletics. And also, when Coach Banks was on a couple of months ago, ideally he agreed with, that's where he wants Southern University to be. But he said we're not there right now. At least he was honest enough to say that.
Yeah.
So with that being
No,
said, that is always going to be a topic of conversation, but it doesn't matter. I can give you my opinion. Remember, I say the facts versus opinion. The facts are those games are still going to be played. My opinion is one day it'll get better, but they will still have the game. Let's make a deal. They'll get that in. That's my opinion. But the facts
yeah.
are playing those games right now.
None of our schools are there. I mean, you said, right now, and we can only deal in the moment. None of our schools are there. I mean, what FAMU got to play North Carolina, last week, the travel and all that's involved, the discussion of not playing that game, the out clause of not playing the game, it was going to cost you more not to play the game. I mean,
Yeah,
I know
they
that
got
was
to honor that.
discussed.
Got to honor
Yeah,
that contract.
they have to honor the contract. Yes.
And to your point earlier, the only team that really has came out and said that they're not going to play those type of games is Jackson State. And you know how I feel about that rivalry between Southern and Jackson State, but they have to give credit where credit's due. They've decided to not play those games. But now, if someone before this show is over with can show me or tell me where to go look at Jackson State's future schedules and see if they're going to have some FBS opponents on there, then I would welcome that information. But as of now, they decided not to. And if we look at Southern's schedule, of course, down the road, they do have a game with Fresno State that's playing up. But I haven't seen anything else. But I'll make sure to take a look. But it's just interesting, the conversation. It's a lot of people's opinions. They go back and forth. Should you play those games? Should you not? 3 minutes before the top of the hour.
I'll give opinion.
Go ahead.
I'll give a quick opinion, Carlos, on Jackson State. I think that based on winning right now, and if they continue to win at this clip, I think the price, and I'm probably going to be criticized for this, but I think the price tag for Jackson State is probably dollars. If an FBS school decided with Coach Sanders and all the 5 stars and all that, and based on their fan base, if they say, hey, we'll give you $1 million to come to Texas A&M, they'll take that deal. They would take that one. $1 million. That's probably what it'll take.
A million ways to count the money.
Yeah, $1 million.
Well,
I think Coach Sanders will probably say that $1 million. Hey, if they give us $1 million, we'll go today. But anything less than that, he probably wouldn't take it. Just my opinion. I have no facts on that, but just based on his discussion that we had at media day, I just think that's just where he's thinking.
Why not 1.2 million? Why not 1.5 million? I believe they believe that that's what they're worth right now. And another point, of all the schools in the conference, certain teams, I could think of 2, can demand $600,000 plus, depending on the FBS opponent. Call me arrogant. That's what they call all Southern fans. Southern's 1, Jackson State 2. Who else could demand more money because of their brand?
I think Alcorn.
That's it. Yeah. Go ahead. I don't. I think Alcorn and FAMU is a step below, but hey, just my opinion. We'll have to ask Dr. Cavill about that. Who brings? He's the branding marketing guru. We know? Excuse me, I'm getting all choked up. We know the top 2, but how would you rank after that? And then we'll get to some football here. The football predictions. I think that's an interesting question.
It is something worth discussing for sure. But we've had this conversation, Carlos, for 20 years about these non-conference games. And it's clearly it's going to continue. I don't see it changing anytime soon. In a perfect world, we would love to see lesser of these games, more of the FCS type stuff, but it's not going to happen. So until things change, the climate changes, we just have to understand that these type of games will be played. I agree that we should play them in week 1. And get it out of the way. Get it out of the way, because what pays coaches in this conference is not the North Carolinas of the world or the Alabama Birminghams. It's the Alabama States, the Alcorns, the Southerns, and Jacksons. That's what pays those coaches. Those coaches will get fired if they don't win those games. No coach in this league will get fired for not beating Alabama Birmingham. It's not going to happen. It's all about what happens in SWAC games or postseason, however way it goes.
Well, I guess, but I still wouldn't say it on television. You know, I like to be brutally honest. We're just going to be competitive, and we try to win every game. We're going to take a timeout. Maybe I can clear up the ancestors, or maybe trying to tell me something. Hour number 2 coming up. We're joined by Brandon Jones of Inside HBCU Football. We'll also get into SWAC games for this week. And we'll still talk some more in Southern University football as they are scheduled to play Florida Memorial at 6 p.m. The basketball tempo on the football field. Up tempo. And then we'll get to see Southern University from a defensive standpoint. Their front seven is the strongest part of that unit. But the secondary got a lot of new faces there trying to get those players acclimated on the football team. They've had a fall camp to do so. Also, the biggest question, and I don't know if it's the biggest question, Coach Dooley, he keeps it close to the vest. I tried to find out, and yesterday I was on campus in the press box. There was a golden opportunity to have loose eyes because they had the schedules out and, ready. And but I was a man of my word. I didn't sneak a peek, but they're going to name the quarterback right at 6 p.m. Who do you think is going to be the starting quarterback? Deshaun McCray or Harold Blood? So we've got more Southern University football to talk, SWAC football, throw in a little Mid-Eastern Athletic Conference football. Week 1, you got some teams playing up the first couple of weeks. Then you have some teams playing down the first couple of weeks. But it's time to get excited. It's week 1, HBCU football. We'll take a timeout. You're watching the Coles Brown Show right here on the Black College Sports Network. We shall return.
Oh, that spin class was brutal.
Well, you can try using the Buick's massaging seat.
Ooh, yeah, that's nice.
Can I use Apple CarPlay to put some music on?
Sure, it's wireless.
Pick something we all like. Okay, hold on.
What's your Buick's Wi-Fi password?
Buick Envision 2021.
Oh, you should pick something stronger. That's really predictable.
That's a really tight spot. Don't worry, I used to hate parallel parking.
Me too.
Hey.
Really outdid yourself.
Yes, we did.
The all-new Buick Envision, an SUV built around you. All of you.
One bite of 100% Angus beef ballpark frank, and you'll say, hello, summer. Oh yeah, it's ballpark season.
We are making the virtual HBCU experience available wherever you live through Stillman Online. We offer online degrees in business, criminal justice, psychology, and religion. Stillman also offers technology badges in cybersecurity and data analytics. You can participate in all student activities, fraternities and sororities, internships, graduation ceremonies, and much more. Apply for admission today at stillman.edu. Stillman College, where we prepare you for a different world.
If you think all pads are exactly the same, think again. This is Always Ultra Thins reinvented with the Always Triple Protection System. This pad wicks gushes 90% faster, absorbs even more so you can feel dry, and locks odors in. Rethink your pad for up to 100% leak-free and odor-free comfort with the totally reinvented Always Ultra Thins. This is always like never before.
This is the Dean of the College of HBCU Sports, Kenyatta Cavill of Dr. Cavill's Inside the HBCU Sports Lab with Mike Washington and Charles Bishop. Come mix it up in the lab where the course lecture is in session every Tuesday from 6 o'clock p.m. Central Standard Time on Facebook Live, YouTube Spreaker, or the BCSN app, as we discuss all things about the HBCU sports culture, including exploring the week that was in the sporting HBCU diaspora. as well as the upcoming week of HBCU sports. With me, the Dean, the College of HBCU Sports, on Dr. Cavill's Inside the HBCU Sports Lab with Mike Washington and Charles Bishop. Course lecture dismissed.
Welcome back to this week's edition of the Carlos Brown Show right here on the Black College Sports Network. Boy, you know, it's interesting the conversation you have. Just got a text message from my cousin, and she's angry with me. She says I need to be a team player and stop disagreeing with Charles. That won't happen. That won't happen in this lifetime. So how about that, cousin? How about that? Welcome to hour number 2 on the Carlos Brown Show. Yeah, Charles, they would probably work with you if you're an AD and I'm an AD, because you're nice and you're going to stick to the plan. I'm a little bit of a radical, but I think I've gotten a little mellow in my middle-age years. We welcome Brandon B.J. Jones here at hour number 2 of Inside HBCU Football. Good afternoon, B.J.
Hey, man. Good afternoon. How's it going?
It's going all right. BJ, I promise we're not going to hog up the time, me and Charles debating, but I do want to hear from you and your perspective, because I always think about you. You transitioned from FBS school to FCS school, and these games are going to continue to be played, in my opinion, and I'm willing to go on the record saying it's going to be at least 6, 7, 8, 10 more years of these type of games when they can get them. But BJ, I tell you what, but when it comes to playing the other FCS brethren, it's kind of like the choir is silent, you know. And one of the arguments you hear, they don't bring anybody to the game. I've heard that excuse. But I just think because you competed, you're recruiting with those same, like in the state of Louisiana, there are a lot of FCS football programs. Eventually, you run across them in the recruiting wars. Wouldn't it be nice to play them and beat them, and then go to kids' homes and say, look, we beat our brethren? And you can use that as a recruiting tool. But I may be way off base, BJ, but you can give us a unique perspective on that, and then we'll get into your thoughts on some of the games that's been played last Saturday, Thursday, and then we'll have some fun with today's games.
Well, I would say this. You know, one of the things I've always said, man, is that we should attempt to be dominant amongst our peers, and that means other FCS programs, particularly those in the region. That should be our goal, to be dominant. You know, hear a lot of talk about SWAC FBS talk, and we want to be FBS in every facet of the game except one of them, on the field. That's the one that you can't dodge. That's the one that you can't dodge. You can have all the money, you can have all the attention, but eventually you got to do it on the field. And that's where it's going to matter. And that's where we have to get into the habit of doing those things. You know, there's no shortcut to do it. You know, as far as playing up, hey, it is what it is. More scholarships, more depth. You know, you expect it to take your lickings, but we shouldn't be dodging anybody FCS-wise within our region. And there's a bunch of those to go around. So that's why I commend Alcorn State and Prairie View and Texas Southern and Alabama A&M for taking on those games this year. And I'm rooting hard for the Braves tonight as they take on Stephen F. Austin.
Yeah, and they get a couple of opportunities to do well. Man, Southern had McNeese State last year up by double digits going to halftime. But that was last year. Going forward, we'll see more of those contests, in my humble opinion. Last Saturday, BJ, were you as proud as I was with the effort that FAMU put up against North Carolina University? Although the score was, 32 points, but man, you had to be proud.
Absolutely, man. FAMU go into the game, you're down You're overmatched. You're missing players, key players, and they didn't make any excuses. They didn't say, "Hey, poor me." They didn't do any of that. They went out and competed, and then going to the fourth quarter of that ball game, that was a 35-24 game. North Carolina poured it on to make it look, better when you picked up the newspaper and look at that box score. But when you looked at that football game, FAMU was right there, and I'm very proud of Coach Simmons and the Rattlers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was as well. And then the Swag MEAC Challenge. The Swag gets a victory. They defeated Howard. And BJ, I was texting with a friend. He made sure to point it out that tell BJ he was wrong with with his prediction with Howard. But guess what? I think you're like me, BJ. When you're wrong, you get it wrong, you say that, and you move on. No excuses. But Alabama State able to pull that out, 23-13 over Howard. How did that game play out to you? Because to me, I couldn't get into it for some reason. I don't know what it was. Was it the start? But what are your thoughts of how that game just came across to you?
Mother Nature is undefeated, particularly in the South this time of year. Man, you talk about a game that didn't start for an hour and 40 minutes after the scheduled kickoff, and then we get a kickoff. We get to the end of the first quarter, and then another 45-minute delay. So we're talking about 3 hours. Halftime that was 3 hours late. Howard really had momentum to start the game. And then after that delay, they never got it back. And kudos to Alabama State. They got it done. I thought that Larry Scott from Howard kind of outthought himself. Howard was almost averaging 5 yards a carry. And then all of a sudden, they completely abandoned the run and aired it out. And it's not like they were down like this huge deficit. They played right into Alabama State's hands. And, kudos to Coach Eddie Robinson and that staff. They got it done. And if you're Alabama State, you got to be excited about that young quarterback, man. His escapability, his ability to extend plays, you just got to be excited.
I'm wondering about him. Not what, about 5'10" maybe? Is that
about
the
5'10",
right height?
5'11", yeah.
Is it fair to say going forward, because of his athleticism, if I'm a defense, I'm going to say, let's see if he, and don't shoot me for this question, see if he can beat me just literally throwing the football. We're going to try to contain his athletic ability if we can do so. But if he beats us throwing the football, then we'll have to live with that. Do you totally disagree with that?
No, I agree. We've seen teams do that with Ladarius Skelton in the past. You have a guy like that's athletic. They can kind of make those plays off key. They can use their feet to extend drives. Okay, what we're going to do is we're not going to let you run it. You're going to have to beat us with your arm. And Davis, he isn't the most accurate in the world. So it would almost behoove defensive coordinators for that to be their strategy. Make his arm do it. Don't allow him to beat you with his feet. A young man came in by the name of Miles Crawley, was a much more accurate passer of the two. He came in first play, boom, 67 yards. And that was Alabama State's biggest offensive gain to that point. So that's an opportunity for Davis, just kind of throwing from the pocket and not using his feet, using his arm a little bit more. So as the season goes along, you'll see more defenses really key on that.
Now, and Charles, don't be quiet now. Jump in when you want to. Thursday, UAB over Alabama 59-0. My cousin once again thinks that I was being harsh on Alabama A&M, but BJ, that was a thorough whipping, and it's a lot of emotions and feelings I have, but I don't want to take up too much of the time. I'm interested in and hearing what you had to say, and Charles again about UAB all over Alabama, 59-0.
That's from me or Charles.
It's open for both. Charles is being a little shy for some reason.
Oh
But
no. I'm taking in BJ's comments, about especially about Alabama State's win and just how impressive it was at the quarterback position. I watched the game a little bit while I was on my little vacation, and I tell you, and this is we talk about the running game. Coaches always say we're gonna run the football, but then how often do you really stick with it? And that's what's made Alcorn so successful. The Braves stick with the run even when it's not working. And Elliot Radden has told me this year in and year out. We're gonna run that football, and that's what's helped the Braves. But teams get away from it, and hey, we'll take it. Oppositions will take it. So to BJ's point, you've got to stay with it, especially when you have a new quarterback like what we're going to have coming up at 6:00. You got to be able to run the football a little bit to be able to help your quarterback. But as far as Alabama A&M, I was disappointed. UAB, they're not the Crimson Tide, and for that to happen the way that it happened, if you're a fan of the SWAC, if you're a fan of Alabama A&M, it truly was disappointing and for me kind of disheartening. Really, I mean, they got bashed pretty good on social media and in the chat rooms. I was expecting a lot better of a performance, even though the continuity is not there. You got all these transfers. BJ talked about it in the offseason. I was expecting a little bit more. I was expecting a lot better, and that didn't happen.
Man, I knew defensively what UAB was going to do. If you've been following football, UAB has been ranked in the top 20 nationally in defense for the last 4 years, and this year they bring back 9 starters. The issue with UAB has always have been offensively. And they came into the game, they're missing the starting running back, second string running back gets hurt very early often. You're missing your top 2 receivers. So they were missing some pieces offensively. They weren't expected to do much offensively. And I felt like Alabama A&M would have to play a great defensive ball game, and be okay. I didn't see that Alabama A&M offense moving the ball on UAB at all. That front seven that the Blazers have, they're that good. And you can see what they did to BYU in the bowl game last year. But I didn't expect this. When I saw the line at 34.5, and then it went up to 40.5, I was like, whoa, I kind of don't see that. I kind of felt like a 42-14 type of game or something like that. But 59-0 to be dominated on offense, defense, and special teams all the way around, didn't see that one coming.
And UAB set the tone early. That first drive, I mean, basically man on man, boom. And Alabama A&M once again, listening to you over the years and for what I've seen, defensively, there's always a challenge, and they didn't meet the challenge. Now the old cliche, most improvement from week 1 to week 2. Happens for most ball clubs. Well, they're playing up again, Troy State. So it'll be interesting. And then last but not least, Thursday night, Tarleton over Mississippi Valley State, 29-13. Different emotions. Valley, once again, defensively, I thought, very tough, physical. You've been in a tough football game. They lose 29-13, BJ.
Man, Valley, man, I was very impressed with the way that they played defensively. Offensively, man, they got to find a resemblance of the pass game. They got to do something to keep teams honest, because what Tarleton did was they just loaded the box and dared Valley to throw it, and they couldn't make those throws. But Tarleton, one of those new FCS programs, they moved up a couple years ago from Division II, out of the Lone Star Conference, now in the WAC. Their brighter days are ahead, but I'm impressed with the way that Valley went in and competed, and Valley had some opportunities to walk away with that football game.
So offensively, no, go ahead, Charles. Go ahead. Go ahead.
I was gonna say midway through the third quarter, it was a ball game. Midway through the third quarter, you're right there, and so when you talk to Coach Dancy at Media Day, and when I watch Valley, we got them coming up at the end of September. Defensively, they're stout. Offensively, they can ground and pound. But the biggest issue is having a healthy, a productive, and a serviceable quarterback. That's been one of their big issues. And I think right now, there's as BJ alluded to, that's still a question mark going forward. That's going to be the big issue with Valley. You've got to be able to move the football and do some things in the passing game and stretch the field a little bit. And that at least from week 1 against Tarleton, that was an issue. And going forward, if that continues to be an issue, it's going to be tough for Valley to get to where they need to go because your defense can only do so much. You're going to get off the field, but offensively, if you keep going 3 and out, turning the football over, pre-snap penalties, behind the chains, your defense is just going to be worn down and eventually worn out. And that's kind of what we've seen with Valley over the years because, in part, a lack of productive quarterback.
Well, BJ, correct me if I'm wrong, they did sign the JUCO, number 1 JUCO quarterback, some say Mississippi Valley State. I think we need to give him another chance or give him some time to get acclimated, and maybe that will improve Mississippi Valley State's offensively, or do they have other issues as well, i.e. a lack of a running game, receivers maybe need to do better? Kind of give us an insight of how they can improve.
The offensive lines played really solid on Thursday. They were able to move that Tarleton State defensive line and give Jelani Easton some time, to throw the ball. My question with Valley is the skill on the outsides, the receivers. Are they up to par? And then Jelani Easton, sometimes he just holds the ball too long. He'll have a guy that's open. He'll wait until he crosses into another window, then throw it, gives the safety and corner time to catch up. So, I mean, that pass game has continued to be a struggle for Mississippi Valley. You saw them turn the ball over in key games last year where they had opportunities to win, trying to throw the football.
Well, hopefully, because this is the past game this Thursday, then all of last year, the adjectives that you hear are the conversation. They're tough. They're improved. Many of you have said that that's your dark horse team. So let's see. It was just 1 week. Let's see if the offense can improve and they can kind of get past everybody saying how tough they are to, wow, they've really started accomplishing things. Now, Saturday, September the 3rd, guys, let's have fun. So let's see some smiles on the faces. Some big games. Last game is going to be intriguing. That's Sunday, September the 4th, FAMU and Jackson State, 2 p.m., ESPN 2. Both teams, to me, as a Southernite, you almost wish the game would be a tie, but that can't happen. But we'll come back. We'll come back to that. That's going to be intriguing. Up first on the ACC network, Bethune-Cookman at Miami. BJ and Charles, Bethune-Cookman says last year was last year. Historically, we've been better. We're going to be better this year. But they're playing what? Up, FBS again. Show up and play hard. Who wins this game? Boy, I know that's wow. That's $1 million question, huh? Who's going to win this game playing up? Bethune-Cookman or Miami? Will Bethune score points? How about that? Anybody can jump in. Or should I say
I don't
BJ?
see it.
It's all about you.
Yeah, I don't see it. I don't see it. I'll start with this one. They got Jalen Jones down there as quarterback. Another former Jackson State guy, and I think he could be the guy going forward. But this is a tough one. Miami's putting a lot of resources into that program. You hear about the NIL stuff and all the Lamborghinis that's parked out in front of the facility down there. I mean, money's being rolling in that program big time with NIL. I don't know whether it'll be an ACC contender or not. I don't know, but I do know that as far as this game is concerned, I see Miami winning this one, going away. Miami all the way. I still think Bethune's got a lot of work to do, even though last year pull off the biggest upset in the league last year, beating Alcorn. I was there to witness that one. But Coach Sims, he feels confident that his team will be better this go around, but not today. But I have Miami all the way.
Hey, I agree with Coach Sims. I think that football team is going to be a lot better. You're not going to be able to see it today. One thing Miami has done, for everything that Miami is, they've not invested a lot of money into their program. Until recently. They know that they have to invest. They have to spend money for them to get back to where they want to be. Even talking about building a stadium closer to campus so they don't have to make that 40-minute drive to Miami Gardens. So I think Miami is going to be a little bit too much. That line is 50, I think 50 and a half. Not sure if Miami's covers, but it's going to be bad.
Well, simple for me. Miami will win. Question is, will Bethune-Cookman score points? I'm going to say yes. They will score 7 to 10 points. Bethune-Cookman, I have faith in you on that aspect. But week 2, week 3, week 4, let's come back and revisit Bethune-Cookman. Miles at Alabama State. Coach Ruffin, Alabama State. Eddie Robinson gets his first win, ESPN Plus, 5 p.m. BJ, who wins this ball game? It's pick'em time.
I like Alabama State. A year ago, Miles felt like one got away from him. That game went to overtime. This is a different Miles program this year. Reggie Ruffin going to Tuskegee. Took a lot of that staff to Tuskegee along with him. Miles is really having to do a minor rebuild. I think Alabama State is hot. Miles is going down there to Montgomery. I think it's going to be a close one, but I think Alabama State pulls it off.
That's a good point. Ruffin at Tuskegee, not at Miles, Mr. Brown. Alabama State, Charles?
Yeah, I have Alabama State as well. I thought that was a huge win by Eddie Robinson Jr.'s ball club in the MEAC Challenge. And as I talked about in the last hour, their defensive coordinator just started like yesterday. He was hired within the last 2 or 3 weeks. And for them to come in that game, in that situation, and keep Howard in check despite all the lightning delays, it's pretty impressive to me. This is a big game in terms of just rivalry. Two schools, Miles and Montgomery. Obviously, that's a big game. I just do think Alabama State just got more. I do expect Bama State to win this game, although if they come out feeling them, smelling themselves, and let Miles just kind of hang around, that could be a triple game. You can get tripped up with, feeling yourself, thinking you're all that in a bag of chips in the dip, and you wind up losing at home, and then the fans are angry with you again. But I do think Bama State's the better team. I do think with that quarterback, I think they'll score points. I have Alabama State winning the game.
I'm going to be quicker to the point again. Alabama State, I picked them to win it. Got a game under their belt, but I think it's going to be closer than maybe some thinks. But I like Alabama State. Moving along, Lane at Arkansas Pine Bluff. I don't know. No one really talks about Arkansas Pine Bluff anymore. Skilled quarterback. Seems like he's been there for 6-7 years, but he hasn't. Pine Bluff on the UAPB Sports Network. I think Pine Bluff wins, and I got them winning by 2 touchdowns plus Pine Bluff. BJ?
Lane is one of the sleeper teams in the SIAC. They had a solid year last year. Got their coach back. A lot of people thought that he would possibly, he was a candidate for the Grambling gig with him being Grambling night. I'm gonna tell you like this: don't sleep on Lane College going into this ball game. I think Arkansas Pine Bluff can get it done, but I think it's gonna be close. I think Lane is going to scare the you-know-what out of them, and I think Arkansas Pine Bluff, I think they get out of there with a win, but it's gonna be too close for comfort.
BJ, if when I said 2 touchdowns plus, I'll be smelling real good. I'll be looking like a king. But if not, BJ, you will be looking at like a king. I got an asterisk by that. BJ says a lot closer. Charles?
Yeah, I mean, UAPB was never the same after they blew that 26-7 lead against Alcorn last year. And the veteran quarterback in the league is a guy by the name of Skylar Perry, plays for UAPB. And so he's been there since 2018. And so that team was never the same last year. I do think it's going to be a little bit closer. If they stumble and bumble their way through this one today and get off to a poor start, the grumbles are going to start down there in Pine Bluff. I do think Pine Bluff will win the game. It's a numbers game, but just like Alabama State and Miles, you let Lane hang around and feel like they can win the game, they will win the game. So Pine Bluff's got to put it away early. I do think they do that.
Oh, it's interesting. I thought you were about to say an upset. BJ was close about saying an upset, but he says he's going to be real close. Okay. Just that. Yeah. Grambling State and Arkansas State. Now, I got to take the emotions out of this. Because I'm feeling some type of way about Grambling State University. But the guy I am, I'm not going to let emotions get in the way here. BJ, Grambling State, if it was based on content and media and social media, you can almost crown them champions. But unfortunately, that is not played on the football field, how well your social media presence is. Arkansas State, they're going to win this football game. But the question is, will Grambling State, with all of the hype and changing the team and the personnel, will they make a game of it, BJ?
I think Grambling has the opportunity to kind of hang tight for a little bit. I think Arkansas State pulls it out. If Grambling can cover that 26.5, I think you kind of can look at that as a win. If you can keep it under 21, I like Arkansas State here in year 2 of the Butch Jones regime up there in Arkansas.
Okay, Mr. Grambling alum, Charles Edmond.
Yeah. We don't know who Grambling's quarterback's going to be. The rumor is that he had 6 quarterbacks on the roster. Who will start? I think that's the big question mark. I don't see this one being close. I'm a Grambling Knight. I want to see it close. Reality speaks a whole nother matter. I do see Arkansas State winning probably by 3 touchdowns or more. I think the continuity on offense will take a little time to develop. We don't know a lot about Grambling. We know about these other teams, but Grambling's kind of kept itself close to the vest. I think Arkansas State will win it. There'll probably be scores early and often, and I think Grambling defensively has got to get a little bit better. I do think Arkansas State will win this one going away.
I will give Coach Hugh Jackson this. He's very confident. He is very confident, and also a social media star. Florida Memorial at Southern University. I'm more thinking about the elements. Right now, it's not raining. Someone give me a report. Has it rained on campus? It was flooding where I'm at, but that's here or there. Could it be Southern against the elements? Is it Southern against their biggest opponents themselves? BJ, if you're Southern and Coach Dooley, he has a mindset that they're playing a team that is very capable of pulling off the upset. With that being said, Southern hosts Florida Memorial. BJ, the $1 million question again: who wins this ball game?
Southern, and the biggest challenge is Southern going against themselves. You have to go in this game focused, taking care of your business, regardless of your opponent. Florida Memorial is going to come in this game. They got a win against Edward Waters, but you can look along the trenches and see that Florida Memorial is outmatched. It's about fundamentals, playing to your standard, not anyone else's, regardless of who your opponent is. Playing to your standard, getting in, doing what you need to do, and then getting out and getting ready for LSU next week.
And I believe if it goes according to plan, Southern University will get to play multiple quarterbacks, second, third units, and that's where you want to see this game come to. And you jump out early, you prove without a shadow of a doubt who's a better team, and then don't take anybody for granted. Charles, it should be a 1 minute answer.
I'm gonna
Go
pull a
ahead.
Carlos Brown on this one. I'm gonna make this one very quick. I've been very consistent about this game from the start. Southern by 5 touchdowns.
Oh, here you go. See, Charles, you notice BJ didn't say 5, 6 touchdowns. I didn't. Um, I know what you're trying to do. I know what you're trying to do, Charles. Okay, so quick with that. Stephen F. Austin and Alcorn State. BJ, I'm pulling for Alcorn. The heart says Alcorn. What say you?
Look, Stephen F. Austin was embarrassed last week by Jacksonville State. They're year one up under Rich Rod. This is the thing not to forget about Jacksonville State. They brought in 15 Power 5 transfers. They were kind of the house of transfers. You could kind of for the SEC castaways. And they're transitioning to FBS, a team that people kind of overlooked. Is this the same Jacksonville State team that went to Tallahassee and beat Florida State a year ago? A lot of talent on that football team. And I know Stephen F. Austin looked bad. They're going to come in this game fired up. They'll come in this game ready to play. I think Alcorn has some matches that intensity. I think Stephen F. Austin pulls it out, but I think the thing is going to be close. And I think that Alcorn's going to shake them up a little bit.
Charles, I know you have a few things you would like to say on this ball game. Stephen F. and Alcorn State.
Yeah, I got a chance to watch the game a little bit the other day. Look, Stephen F. gave up 285 yards rushing against Jacksonville State last week. Jarvian Howard, Syracuse transfer. We're going to be one of our top backs in the backfield. Nico Duffy. Braves going to run that football. If they can run that football, they're going to win this game. Aaron Allen, I think, will get the start at quarterback. Fred McNair was very coy about his two deep, even on Thursday when we talked and had the season premiere. But a little bird has told me that Aaron Allen's going to start at quarterback tonight, the Louisiana Tech transfer. Let's make it easy on Aaron Allen. Let's run the football. Let's not make him make tough plays, at least in his first start. If we can do that, and if special teams can be productive, run the football, chew up ground and pound, we can win this game because Jacksonville State ran for 285. If we can do that, we'll win the game. May not be 42-17, but we will win the game the Braves way and get off to a good start.
Well, and the rain, the elements, the weather, I think that can help a team that wants to run the football and who can be physical at the point of attack. And something BJ said, Stephen F. Austin ranked 10th in the preseason coming into that game. They were embarrassed. We know the cliche, the most improvement from game 1 to game 2. Because they were embarrassed, I think they're going to be ready to play. A key thing when I always start with my heart, I'm pulling for Alcorn State, but my head says it's still stuck with Stephen F. Austin being embarrassed. I think Stephen F. Austin pulls out a close ball game. But I wouldn't be surprised if Alcorn win, but I'm going to pick Stephen F. Austin in a close one. And Alcorn State will be right there, in my humble opinion. The Labor Day Classic, Texas Southern and Prairie View. I'm going to start this one off. I went back and forth. Body, I know. Texas Southern offensively, based on last year, pretty good. Defensively, they are question mark as Alabama A&M. Prairie View A&M, new coach, new head coach, but he's been there with the program. At home, I'm going with Prairie View in this one. Texas Southern, as you see, joined by Charles Bishop there, who actually in the West in our colleagues' predictions had Texas Southern ahead of Southern University. But no, Charles, I didn't set you up to bring you on so the Jaguar Nation can take you to task. Charles Bishop's a great guy. Great guy. But I'm gonna pick Prairie View in this ball game. Charles Bishop, good afternoon. Hey, we're doing prediction segment. Prairie View and Texas Southern. Need I ask who you got winning this ball game?
Well, I had Texas Southern, at media day to make a little move in the West. I think Texas Southern will get this win. I think they are a different team. I think people would be pleasantly surprised. I had an opportunity to catch a few of their practices this past summer. Those guys, they've hit it hard over the summer workouts and whatnot, and they're ready to go out and go turn some heads this year.
So, Charles Bishop of the pregame show, proper introduction, right here on the Black College Sports Network. He is in Miami. Charles, we'll talk. I need some Miami Heat paraphernalia since I've hadn't been there in a while. So, but we'll talk about that. BJ, who you got in this one, my man?
It's been 10 years since Texas Southern has beaten Prairie View. Texas Southern, Andrew Body, that explosive offense. It's not going to matter. Prairie View, 11 years. I think Prairie View gets it done. I think Prairie View has been kind of cast away. People discounting what they did a year ago. Lost the head coach, lost some key players, but they got a lot of key players back. I think Prairie View finds a way to get it done at home.
Ooh, BJ, you threw a hook on me. I thought you was going the TSU route, and we got it on record. He takes Prairie View. Charles Edmond, who is looking very coy right now. Who you got, Charles?
I think BJ had a little bit too much light when he pulled the curtains over. Too much light got in his brain there. I got Texas Southern. I got Texas Southern. I've been impressed with Body. I just go back to our game last year. He was a freshman, couldn't hang on to the football, careless turnovers. But you see his development, the camps, and what he's done in this offseason. I think Texas Southern is going to go in there. I'm going to take Texas Southern and win this game. I was not aware that the game was back on campus, by the way. I didn't know that till probably a month ago. I thought it's normally at NRG or another place, you're kind of a neutral site game. But it's at Prairie View. It's going to be a great turnout there. I think Texas Southern's going to win this game. I'm going to go against the grain a little bit. I think Texas Southern offensively will be improved. Defensively, they'll be improved. And I still have some questions, even though Prairie View won the West, but their top defensive players gone. You got coach, you got that continuity. I'm going with something just tells me Texas Southern's going to win this game. So I'm going with TSU.
Well, that's 2 for Prairie View, 2 for Texas Southern. Do we need a tiebreak on that one? Probably not. But I'm going to have Truck's pick. Bishop, Truck, BJ, Charles, my best friend's pick. We try to get him to do it every week. We'll give his a little later. Sunday, September 4th, FAMU. Jackson State FAMU gets some players back. And Charles has that look like I saw him earlier on the Black College Sports Network Game Time. It doesn't matter, I believe Charles is going to say. FAMU, Jackson State. We'll come to you last, Charles. Bishop.
Okay, no problem.
Bishop. BJ, who you got in this ball game? Very intriguing game.
I hope they beat the hell out of each other. I hope they absolutely kill each other.
I said a tie. Is it a tie?
Look, I think with FAMU, they're coming off. They kind of know what they have a little bit. Getting a game under their belt. Watching North Carolina and App State right now. North Carolina was down big to App State. Now they're up 28-21 going into the half. Their North Carolina offense can score on anybody. The problem is defensively they can't stop anyone. So I think with FAMU having the game under their belt, I think that gives them an advantage. But I was always told, man, you got to go with the champ until somebody proves that they can beat them. And until I see someone in the Southwestern Athletic Conference actually beat Jackson State, I'm going to have to roll with Jackson State. I think it's going to be a close ball game, but I like the intangibles of Jackson State. And I think there's something to be said about the unknown. Jackson State has seen FAMU. FAMU has not seen Jackson State.
Charles Edmond.
I have said this. I've been on the record. I am a Willie Simmons fan. He was here at Alcorn. I think they should have beat Jackson last year. Even though they didn't have the players last week, they've got quite a bit back this week, including their best defensive player. The emotions that will be behind this game tomorrow will be off the charts because nobody is giving FAMU a chance. BJ made his prediction. That type of thing can lead to an upset. I'm going with Florida A&M, guys. I'm going with Florida A&M. You got Musa. If Musa didn't play well last week, I would go with Jackson. And I was going with Jackson, and I said, you know what? If FAMU gets some of these players back, if they get Lance back, I think the momentum and just the energy mentally, I think FAMU is going to get this one tomorrow. I'm going with FAMU to win this game.
Well, the emotional guy that I am, I'm not going emotional on this one because everyone knows how I feel about minus Charles Bishop and to a certain extent Neely, but know how I feel about the rivalry with Jackson State. Take the emotional part out of it. I will bet Jackson State is not going to let Mighty Musa be comfortable back there. I think they're going to come up with a hell of a defensive package, and I think they're going to put a lot of pressure on him. If he's able to do it, I'll come back next week and say I was totally wrong. But I just think the intangibles and the emotion goes only so far, Charles Edmond. It comes down to execution. BJ knows of famous Otis Washington at Southern University, former head coach. When they won the ball game, it was because of execution. When they didn't win, his first sentence was, it was a lack of execution. Execution, I'm going with, as much as it pains me, I'm going with Jackson State in this ball game, but I think it's going to be very close. It could come down to a special teams play, a field goal, a punt return, or a block punt. I'm going with Jackson State in this one. Bishop?
Well, I think the biggest intangible is Charles Edmonds. I want to thank him. All the butterflies I had now are gone now that he's picked FAMU, so I feel real good now. So, but I think, Dennis Thurman, the way he dials up defenses, no one scored 3 times against Jackson State in the Southwestern Athletic Conference last season. And I think I can make a really good argument. The pieces that he has on defense are going to be a lot faster. They're really chomping at the bit. They've heard all the, naysayers since the Celebration Bowl, and that's fair because when you think about it, I mean, your last perception of Jackson State is their loss against South Carolina State, and you take your hats off to South Carolina State, but they are really frothing, if you will, to get out there tomorrow and prove everybody wrong, much like it kind of takes on the same air as 2021 when they were coming off the spring season. They had a huge chip on their shoulder, and Coach Prime, he keeps that chip rather heavy. So those guys are really excited. They're going through their final walkthrough now, and the coaches are kind of having to calm them down a little bit because they're so, keyed up about tomorrow. So it's going to be a fun atmosphere. I'm looking forward to it. Looking forward to seeing a lot of these new faces that are going to be introduced to the HBCU world. Names like Dallas Davis, I think, is one that you'll be very surprised by. That receiving room is ridiculously deep. So, and I think they're going to be pretty aggressive with regards to trying to get downfield and make some plays.
So you, Bishop, you nodded your head when I did say they're going to dial up something. I just don't think you can let him sit back there. And to BJ's point, North Carolina, defensively, I know they probably played just basic, but BJ, interesting point. You said North Carolina defensively has a lot to be. They need to work on their defense. So again, with that being said, I just think Coach Thurman will design something. Well, I say already designed something to not have Musa back there being comfortable, guys. BJ, while I have Charles Bishop, I didn't get a chance to talk with him about last year's ball game with Southern and Jackson State. We always talk about throw records out. And boy, Southern had them. Let them off the hook. How did you feel about that game? Although we're going back to last year, to our point that we talked, just throw records out when they get together. It is a barn burner.
Yeah, I mean, it totally is a barn burner. When you talk about playing Southern, our fiercest rival, yeah, you toss the records out. I mean, it is the best, I believe, atmosphere in all of, I'll say it, in all of college football. I love coming down to Baton Rouge, coming into that hostile environment. You're talking about two proud, arrogant fan bases. You're talking about two proud, historic teams. The bands are going at each other. It's a beautiful college atmosphere, and it's just one of those games that you throw those records out, and best team wins. And it was finally good to get a little bit of payback. I mean, I've been on the the receiving end for I don't know how many years was it, DJ, that Southern was whooping us?
8 years? Well, yeah, 9 years in a row. 9 years in a row. Yeah.
Yeah. That was a huge win for me last year, and it was even bigger when Coach Prime, he came back and kind of gave them that emotional lift with him having his medical challenges there last season. But I mean, it was easily the best environment I think that we played in. And Alcorn will probably be 1A. That was a lot of fun having 58,000 people there in Memorial Stadium.
Yeah, and the rivalry speaks for itself. And but before that October 29th game, there'll be a lot of football games to be played.
That birthday weekend, Carlos?
Yeah, well, I didn't want to say that because I've said it about 10 times already. But yeah, and remember at SWAC Football Media Day, boy, his partner in crime, Neil, said, I got you with a cigar, I got you with dinner, but your present gonna be a loss. Oh, I'm fired up. Maybe if I get these Southern out of the tunnel, I think BJ's in better shape for me. Maybe I can talk him into leading Southern out there at Veterans Memorial. That's going to be electric atmosphere. But Bishop, it's a 1 p.m. game. How that game has been made to be played in the crisp October cool air where those both fan bases, BJ, follow me on this one, they've worked up to that 6 p.m. game. Boy, 1 p.m., I guess people will have to be feeling in a good mood if you get my drift about 9 o'clock.
Definitely gonna have to be in a good mood. But I guess for television purposes, the game will be at the time that it's at 1. But I'm like you, Carlos. I love a cool, crisp autumn night. Jackson State Southern, Sonic Boom, Human Jukebox. Man, what is better?
It's nothing better. That statement you made, Bishop. What do Jacksonians think about that? Because when I make that statement, a similar statement, the Grammar Knights attack me because it's the Bayou Classic. That's the rivalry. But the fierce rivalry is Southern and Jackson State. But just
I think for a lot of Jackson State fans, especially those of us who grew up in the 80s and 90s that were used to those night games, we love those night games. But will and you make but night game it gives you so I love playing games at night. There's something special about that, and anything it's tremendous environment.
BJ, upset of the week. I'm putting you on the spot in Black college football. Who would it be, and who would it be? What game?
Potentially, I'm looking at Lane over Arkansas Pine Bluff. I think that potentially could be one of the biggest upsets of the week. And also looking at Charlotte, North Carolina Central over North Carolina A&T. I think that's a strong possibility. So those are the two places where we start looking at upsets. those are the first two places that I'll take a look.
Wow, it's been a while since North Carolina Central, right? Defeated North Carolina A&T. Hearing that it's going to be a nice crowd. Charles, you want to agree with BJ? Boy, I knew he was going to come back to that lane over UAPB. Now I'm kind of feeling a little weird about a 14-plus victory by UAPB. I'm putting a lot on them. A lot of confidence in UAPB.
Yeah, I mean, I think that would be an upset. I think for all the talk, and I think clearly I'm coming back to Jackson State FAMU. I think everybody except maybe Charles Edmond is picking Jackson State, and except the Rattler fans. I think if FAMU pulls off that one, that will be an upset considering what they've been through. So I'll put that one right up there with Lane and UAPB, because I don't think anyone outside of Tallahassee has Florida A&M and Lorman, Mississippi, where I am. And it's a lot of it's for personal reasons, but I think other stuff is in there, in my opinion. I think that will be a huge upset if FAMU, despite everything they've dealt with in the last 8 days, if they beat Jackson State, and look, that's a statement game for the East. People got to realize that whoever loses that game is 2 games out because you lose out on the tiebreaker. So that game counts for 2 if you really just sit back and think about it. FAMU did their part after Jackson State, but Jackson never relinquished it last year. So that's a huge game. But if there's another upset special out there, I think it would be FAMU over Jackson State. I'm coming back to that.
I don't know if I would consider that an upset, but I guess maybe in light of all what FAMU's gone through. Let me give you Truck's pick. I'm hoping that this could be a weekly thing, but he's got Southern, Alcorn, FAMU, Prairie View, Alabama State, and Arkansas Pine Bluff. Interesting. We've got about 4 minutes left, and I had some video. Roy, if we can, let's look at the one with Coach DeMarcus Miller, if we can. But if not, we'll do it next week. I'm not
sure who Coach DeMarcus Miller is. Is that the one outside or inside?
That's the one outside.
All right, we gotcha.
Okay, you can play it, and I'll talk to the guys as we get ready to wrap it up. We actually got about 4, 5, 6 minutes. We came on a little bit late.
We're good if you want to watch both of them.
Okay, thank you a lot, Roy. Mr. FAMU himself. You gotta love it. Look how we
see y'all. Got that mic'd up. Y'all better watch what y'all say. Your mama think y'all some angels. She gonna hear y'all on this TV. There you go. Oh, that's the Weezy. That's the Weezy. You don't want none of this, coach. Woo, there you go. He beat. Woo. All the police, y'all. All the people. All the people. There you go. There you go. That's you go. Boy. So, Duty, you might want to leave. You didn't want to come over here and see this. Oh, he flipped. There you go. Rip it through. That's money, baby. That's money. There you go. Now get rid of it. There you go. Oh, way to slip it. PPP, baby. Penetration produces problems. There you go. Staying active with hands and feet. He gets beat. Boom, boom. That's how it should look. That's how it should look. What's wrong with it? They tender. You know, tender. You got your nails looking pretty. You don't want to mess them up or something. Come on. Oh, I know who's gonna lose this one. Who don't like to use their hands. The handless man. Here we go. My bad. Hey, from 3 to 5, you our enemy. So go just like your rich food. If he call you home between 3 to 5, that's where you gonna be at. Hey, y'all better come with that same thing. So what? Go. Come on. Right there. Oh, give me some. Hey, that's what I'm talking about. Come flat. There you go, Miles. There you go. Good job. That's what I'm talking about. Hey, there you go. Way to clap that pocket. I see you, Steph. Yeah, it is too much pressure. Let him run down there and get hit. Let him run down there then. We got blown up in the... Bam! quarterback on his back. And a pick. Now, you saw that? That's called D-line. That's shot. They know that is. We just walk them back. Walk them back to their coach, put them hands in their life. There you go. There you go. Right there. Right there. Right there. Right there. You heard what he said. Watch your mouth, baby. Watch your mouth. But watch but what he said. There you go. Right there. Woo! Oh, look at that. Look at that. Call him people for us. It's over. Easy water there, baby. That's the drill, dog. It's over with. They stop practicing. Let's go. We hurt them boys. Man. That's what you get. That's what the offensive linemen are. That's what we do to them, man. We put them over there on the side. We sorry, we didn't mean to do that. D-line coach talking crazy. Yeah, it's so crazy. Them boys in blue backed me up too.
Make it slap. Whoa, this that goat. Lil' tryna act smart with me, but she don't know shit. 7-Eleven, I bought all the backwoods sodas and Trojans. It's like 500 at the crib, and we still let them all win. Whoa.
That kind of gets you fired up, BJ. Now, you're a former athlete, still an athlete, but all of the preparation, fall camp, practicing hard, you were able to get it done. Charles, that's interesting. Coach Dooley, that's how he brings out the football team. He'll do that today. He'll do it when Alcorn comes. He'll do it in Jackson. But that was Coach DeMarcus Miller, defensive line coach. And if you remember, everyone, he was a hellified defensive tackle for Southern University. Coach Doug Williams told me at a basketball game one time, Southern Grambling State, that they could not block him. Could not block him. And if he was 6'1", 6'2", he would have been in the league. But now his passion, just like on the football field, his passion with coaching. And, I know all teams go through that. There's competition in practice. The position coaches, D-line, giving you some there. Charles, interesting, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean that gets you fired up for the season. I mean he's kind of like Coach Thornton in a way. I mean just kind of very chirpy, very chatty. He's very engaged, and I like that. I mean that's what you want to see, from coaches. And Coach Dooley, I didn't know he had that kind of twerk and move in him, Carlos. That's the most I've seen him move around. He's usually, to me, kind of stoic, but hey. Mm-hmm. He's back at home, and you can be that comfortable when you're at home, and that's where he is. And now we'll see how they do against Florida Memorial. My pick. I've said it for 3 months. I don't think the game will be that close as you talked about. They'll play 2 or 3 quarterbacks if they got a fourth one on the roster. I think that's a game. That's a game you want to see a lot of bodies on the field because the next week you're gonna need them with LSU. So that's a good way to start. I think Southern will win this one going away, but good coaching staff. I've been impressed with all the hires he's made. He's made all the right moves off the field, hiring the right coaches, Southern field, SWAC field, Baton Rouge field. Now it's time to get it done on the field. And if he does that, he'll have the Jaguar Nation eaten out of the palm of his hand.
We didn't. It was on our trending stories. We get ready to wrap up this week's edition of the Carlos Brown Show. I want to say it once again. When the show started, we said good morning, but want to say good afternoon to everyone in the chat room. Our usuals, good conversation going on, and that's what it's about. Discussion. Want to thank. We got a list of them right now, and I didn't respond to everything, but just once again want to say good afternoon to everyone. Derek Qualls, Chuck Hunt, Michael Cavalier. Appreciate Michael Cavalier. Um, very generous to the Coles Brown Show this past week. Want to thank you. Of course, good afternoon to Jamal Scott, Edwin Dwight Moore. Who else we got in here that we don't have? Johnny Johnson, appreciate you, brother. Of course, Chuck Hunt once again. And that's pretty much all of them. And Coach T, appreciate you tuning in. Coach T, rehab has been successful there. He's on Southern University staff. We appreciate him as always. Once a competitor, always a competitor. Also, our thoughts and prayers for the city of Jackson, Mississippi, with the water crisis going on. A lot of people are donating water locally here. An organization that helps out with flooding, hurricanes, the Cajun Navy, on their way to Jackson to bring loads of water. It's a shame in 2022 that you have to deal with this kind of situation. It's been a long problem that hopefully it will be finally addressed. Also, congratulations to Dr. Charles McClellan getting awarded a 3-year contract extension. Hats off to him, FAMU. Got good news. Eligible players will play in the Orange Blossom Classic, and all the HBCU players that made the NFL 53-man roster. Very, very good. We read a lot of them out earlier in the show. Brian Cook, DB Joshua Williams, DB with Kansas City, Jacoby Durant, DB Los Angeles Rams, South Carolina State, Jatiri Carter, offensive lineman, Chicago Bears, Southern University, and Deshaun Dixon, defensive end from Norfolk State, Jacksonville Jaguars, and Marquise Bell, defensive back, Dallas Cowboys, and FAMU. Charles, closing comments. Anything that you quickly want to get off your chest or something that you're feeling right now? Now's the time you can address it, sir.
Yeah, I do. I do kind of want to address it a little bit. The whole FAMU situation. There's been a lot of criticism for the FAMU administration up and down the line, and I know on various talk shows they've been criticized in terms of how this thing was handled with certification and eligibility and all that. And I'm just not one, and maybe I'm just speaking from my own personal deal because I'm on the inside of it. There's just so many moving pieces to how those things happen. I just think we just need to take the time, and I'm talking about we administrations need to take the time to explain how these things work because it's compliance, it's financial aid, it's a lot of pieces that are involved. And I'm not one to criticize any AD or any president for how those things happen because we need to educate ourselves and be educated about how these things work. But no one is really taking the time to really explain how 20 some odd players were ineligible. For FAMU. Whose fault is it? It could be a combination of a number of things that could happen. You know, when you're shorthanded and all those things that happen, I think we just need to take a deep breath sometimes and just understand why and how these things happen and not quick to just throw the baby out with the bathwater. I think we need to just slow down a little bit and understand. I'm only saying this because I work at a university and I've been blessed and fortunate to talk with various ADs, presidents, financial aid people, compliance people, certification people. I kind of have an idea of how it works because it's been explained to me. But it's a lot easier said than done. And I just think all this criticism, some of it is warranted. Some of it is lack of planning, fail to plan to fail, that type of thing. But I think we need to be a little bit more educated in terms of how these things work. And I think if we get that, I think we won't be so harsh because sometimes it's not always needed.
Well, in this case, everyone has an opinion, but I look at the FAMU alums and I look at the supporters, graduates, et cetera, et cetera. Only thing from the outside looking in, advice I can give, invest in the resources to help This will never happen again. And also, one of the things I always talk about, you could control the narrative. Be transparent. If something is going wrong, or let your alum and family know about it. Don't sit back and say, well, they don't understand, and then don't say anything. A lot of heat has come down on the administration. A lot of it is warranted. There's enough blame to go around. But at the end of the day, I go back again. Be transparent with everything that goes on. And then you can get ahead of the story. Because once it hits the national airwaves, everyone can give their opinions, but facts loom large. Opinions are just opinions. And I've had people to send me clips of Roland Martin, and everybody's ranting and raving about that. But I look to the inside people who's been there. They've been there, and they know from the inside out what needs to be done and what needs to be done to correct the situation. From a personal standpoint, I take no glee in that because being a Southern University alum, and we've seen it throughout the conference, these type of things have happened. But as Dr. Cavill stated last week, let's be careful. Register office, financial aid, and compliance, they all work together. So it's enough blame to go around. But let's not just say the blame. It's enough to go around also to fix the problem. You know what? It's like driving one time, and my dad's gone on to glory. Always check, and I'm going to tie this in, always check your spare tire. You never know when you need it. Okay, Dad, yes, no problem. I always check it. But I didn't. And guess what? One day I was somewhere where I wasn't supposed to be, and I got a flat. Popped the trunk. The spare was flat too. Damn, what I'm going to do? I had to call my dad to come help me out. So with that being said, get together, get this situation fixed, and so it won't happen again. And by the way, the SWAC office sent personnel to help out. That's a great thing. But anyway, it's football time. Games have already started. I appreciate everyone for tuning in. For Charles Edmond, I'm Carlos Brown. I want to thank Roy Evans. Charles, you early with that chop, huh? Oh, well, they better win Alcorn State. Thank all of those who watch and produce all of the guests. Make sure you tune in next Saturday at 11 a.m. Central Standard Time for another edition of the Carlos Brown Show right here on the Black College Sports Network. Until next time, peace and God bless. Go Jags, go SWAC, go HBCUs.